Hello. Let's see. It looks like I've lost my question here. There it is. Military funding. I know we did this in class, but so be it. A group is investigating student opinions about funding of the military. They phone a random sample of students in the college, asking each person one of these questions. So it's a good example of bias. The first question says, do you think the funding of the military should be increased so that the United States can better protect its citizens? And B, do you think that funding of the military should be increased without that extra sentence? So which question do you expect will elicit greater support for increased military funding, and explain what sort of bias it is? Well, if you read this first question again, do you think military funding should be increased so that we can better protect its citizens? So they're implying that if you don't say yes to that question, you don't think we should be protected. So we call that is definitely a biased question. And that is an example of response bias. So we would say the first question, I would say the first question would elicit more support. Uh, for increasing military spending. And the wording appeals to feelings of safety. So they're trying to get somebody to respond with emotions. And the second question is much more neutral. Um, is much more neutral, meaning it does not elicit any sort of, it's not trying to elicit any sort of emotional response. So the first question demonstrates, sorry, that's terrible. I have to rewrite that just because I do. The first question, I'm at the bottom of my iPad here, that's why it's doing this. Let me move up. The first question is an example of response bias. And again, response bias is anytime the question itself is influencing the response, right? And as I said earlier, different other forms of bias are non-response bias. That's where we don't count everybody. We only take the people who turn in the surveys, but all the people that didn't, we don't count them. There's also under coverage. That's another form of bias, which I think he went over in the video. There's also voluntary response bias, non-response, response, voluntary response. So those are the main forms of bias. All right, see you at office hours. Hopefully, I only saw 2 people this week so far.